Think about the stuff you own and use every single day. Your internet connection at home, the sensors in your phone. What if I told you those things could be making you money? The idea of turning your idle digital resources into a passive income stream? Well, it's not sci-fi anymore. It's actually the heart of a brand new and pretty controversial tech gold rush. Okay, let's get into it.
So let's start with this. What if you could get paid for the internet you're already paying for? I'm not talking about filling out surveys or watching ads. I mean, just letting an app use the bandwidth you aren't even touching. It's a pretty tempting idea, right?
Well, there's an app out there called GetGrass that is making that exact promise. It's a platform that says you can earn rewards just by sharing your spare internet. And honestly, it's the perfect jumping-off point for a much bigger and maybe even revolutionary concept.
And that promise? Well, it goes straight for the jugular, doesn't it? The lure of easy, passive income. It's an incredibly powerful hook. So let's take a minute and see how this is all supposed to work.
So, from your side of the screen, they make it sound super simple. You just download a browser extension and it shares your extra bandwidth with companies, mostly AI labs that are hungry for massive amounts of data to train their models. For doing that, you get these things called grass points. Now, the hope is that these points will eventually turn into a real cryptocurrency. And the whole thing is built on the Solana blockchain, which is famous for being super fast and cheap, making it kind of perfect for this kind of model. We have tons and tons of tiny transactions.
But you know how it goes. Whenever something sounds a little too good to be true, you gotta be skeptical. And a lot of people are asking a really important question. Is this a genius way to earn some crypto, or is it just a digital Trojan horse you're willingly letting into your home network?
And this is the heart of the whole problem. A Reddit user, Lumpy-Criticism2773, did some digging into the extension's permissions and found this little gem: the power to read or modify web requests on all websites. I mean, that is a staggering amount of power to just hand over. You're basically giving someone the master key to your entire life online.
So what could an app with those kinds of permissions actually do? Well, users have pointed out some seriously scary possibilities. It could be quietly building a super detailed profile of everything you do online and then selling that data. Or in a worst-case scenario, it could theoretically change your web traffic to hijack your accounts or even steal money. A more subtle and maybe more likely risk is that it could sneak its own affiliate links into your online shopping, skimming a cut of your purchases without you ever knowing it. And then there's the big one. What if the extension itself gets hacked? That could open up every single user to a massive coordinated attack.
And this quote just nails the feeling a lot of people have. The risks is too much for me for penny stocks. For a lot of folks, the potential reward, which, let's be honest, is still pretty speculative, just isn't worth that kind of gamble.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this whole thing, we need to zoom out, because Grass is just one tiny piece of a much larger, much more ambitious tech movement. This is where we get to the really big idea, something called DePIN.
DePIN. It stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. Yeah, I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but the core idea is actually pretty straightforward. It's a system that uses crypto tokens to encourage people all over the world to chip in their own resources, like internet bandwidth, hard drive space, even the location data from their car, to build and run a huge shared infrastructure network, but without any big company in charge. Think of it like a version of the internet that's owned and operated by its users.
And you want to know how new this all is? The field itself is brand new. They only just settled on the name. It started out as MachineFi, then it was DePIN for Token Incentivized Physical Networks. But in late 2022, a public poll finally crowned it DePIN. And honestly, it's a great name. It captures both sides, the decentralization and the physical infrastructure. The fact that the name itself is so recent just shows you how fast this whole area is moving.
So what kind of infrastructure are we even talking about? Well, it pretty much falls into two main buckets. First, you've got the digital stuff, right? The internet bandwidth that Grass uses, or maybe your extra cloud storage, or even the spare processing power from your gaming PC. But then you've got the physical resources, and this is where it gets really wild. We're talking about people setting up wireless hotspots in their city, or putting up little environmental sensors to track air quality, even sharing location data from their car to help build a decentralized version of Google Maps. The sky is really the limit here.
And this really shows you what it looks like. On the one hand, you have the purely digital, the invisible stuff floating around in the cloud. And on the other, you have actual physical hardware out there in the real world. The real magic of DePIN is how it connects all these different things from all over the planet into one giant user-powered network.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on what DePIN actually is, let's bring it all back to that central dilemma. Because with this new technology, you get a whole new set of risks and rewards.
And you really have to understand both sides of that coin before you even think about jumping in.
All right, let's just lay it all out on the table. In the rewards column, you've got the promise of a crypto airdrop, basically getting free tokens for being an early user. You get to monetize something you're already paying for. You get bonuses for referring your friends. And you get to feel like you're contributing to the future of AI. But in the risk column, the downsides are pretty heavy. You're looking at a potential loss of data privacy, serious security threats to your whole network, and even the possibility of financial theft. And on top of all that, for the average person, there's no real way to verify that the app's code is safe. You're just taking their word for it. That's the trade-off, plain and simple.
And I want to be clear, this isn't just some fringe idea for a few crypto fanatics. The decisions people are making about these risks and rewards, they are fueling a massive, multi-billion-dollar boom. The amount of money pouring into this space is just enormous. Just look at this number. In a single year, the DePIN market grew by over 326%. I mean, that's almost unbelievable. That kind of growth is faster than the early internet. It's not a trend. It's a full-blown explosion. And this chart really puts that growth into perspective. We're talking about a market that shot up from about $3 billion to almost $12 billion in 1 year. And yeah, Ethereum is still the big player, but look at Solana. It grew over 1,300% in a year. That's because its speed and low cost make it the perfect engine for these DePIN projects that need to handle a ton of small transactions. It's practically built for this stuff. So what's driving all this money? This chart tells the whole story. AI-related projects make up almost 60% of the entire DePIN market. And that brings us right back to where we started, with Grass. The biggest demand for all these decentralized resources is coming from the AI industry, which needs all the data and computing power it can possibly get its hands on. In a weird way, the rise of AI and the rise of DePIN are two sides of the very same coin. So when you look at the promise of passive income, and you weigh it against the very real risks to your privacy and security, and then you see the massive market forces behind it all, it really just comes down to a personal choice. It's your data, it's your network, it's your decision. So if you only remember a few things, make it these. First, DePIN is this powerful new idea for turning our own personal stuff, our data, our devices, into a shared, valuable infrastructure. It's a whole new way of thinking about value. Second, that promise of easy money almost always comes with a catch. And here, it's a serious look at security and privacy. You know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And finally, whether you decide to jump in or stay far away, this is a multi-billion-dollar trend that is only getting bigger. You are going to hear a lot more about DePIN. And that really leaves us with one final huge question. As our digital and physical lives blend together more and more, the infrastructure that connects them has to be built by somebody. So the question is, who do you trust to build it? The giant centralized companies we have today, the Googles and Amazons of the world, or a decentralized, user-powered network of tomorrow, a DePIN? It's a question we're all going to have to answer probably sooner than we think.